What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. Today, we have the special guest, Tyler Morris, also produces under the name Westend. He's a tech house producer, DJ, and educator based in New York. He's worked with established artists like Diplo, MK, Claude Von Stroke, Corry, many others. His singles have hit the charts, including his song Jumpin, which peaked at number 2 on Beatport. He was also ranked the 7th best-selling tech house artist overall on Beatport. He's also played major music festivals all over the country, including EDC, and he also runs the music production training website Kickin' Bass, including a Discord server providing one-on-one mentorship and video tutorial training on how to produce tech house music. In this episode, we talk about a lot of different things, such as what it was like for him to quit his full-time 9-to-5 to make music a career producing DJing, how he did that. He talks about his favorite music production plugins, also talks about some of his favorite bass instrument plugins. We also talk about our DIY setup for working inside of a small studio space. He shares a little bit about his training and some tips and tricks that he teaches to his students. There's a lot of random good conversation in this episode. Before we dive in, I just wanted to let you know I'm actually looking to hire part-time for the podcast. So if you want to hang out with me and help me and the team build up this podcast, I'm searching for a brand partnerships and marketing coordinator part-time. If you have experience working in the music industry in some fashion, if you have a basic understanding of producing using plugins, gear, etc., and you also have experience in marketing or sales or management, and you're a rock star at sending emails, then I encourage you to apply. Would love to meet you and see if it would be a good fit to work together. Ideally, this would only be about 4 to 8 hours per week, very part-time. But if you're interested in learning more, check out the description at liveproducersonline.com/jobs. That's liveproducersonline.com/jobs. Also, wherever you're listening, if you would hit that follow button, like, subscribe, wherever, really help me out in this podcast. And if you want to join the newsletter, be the first to get new episodes and get some cool free Ableton content, join the newsletter. Go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Much love to all of you out there. Hope you enjoy this episode. And yeah, without wasting more time, let's dive in. Dude, thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, man, of course. I didn't realize you work with Michael.
Oh, Michael, yeah, McReynolds.
Yeah, so I've known him for a while. Like I don't know if we've played shows together, but like he was good friends with this guy Corry that would throw these, like, the festival Holy Ship.
Yeah.
So he would, like, it's called like Ship Fam, and I don't know. I think I met Michael there, but I've known him for a little bit. So it's
yeah, it is a small world. It keeps getting smaller the more I do this. Yeah, Michael's super cool, dude. He does the scheduling for my podcast and produces under the name Sweater Disco.
Yeah,
he's got the coolest hair. He's got the best dance moves. He's just like always got this bounce. He's like this tall, lanky dude with the fro. He's just getting it. He's great. I love him.
Are you you're not in the same city as him, are you?
We are for now. My lease just finished and I live in Indianapolis for now, but I'm moving to Denver.
Nice. Yeah. So, I think that was the last time I saw him. I think I did a show at like the Patron Saint.
Yeah. I played there a few times. It's a cool little underground spot.
Cool. I remember they gave me like Fernet or something. They gave me like some alcohol that was just the most disgusting, vile thing ever. It was like some I don't know if it was Fernet or like something else, but it was like so hard to drink. But
never had it.
It's a cool little club there.
Yeah, maybe just update your rider and shove it in their face next time you play.
Like, it was not on the rider. It was like a special. They're like, you got to try this. I was like, okay.
That's funny. Where are you based out of right now?
No, I live in New York City. I grew up here.
Man, I love New York City. How is New York these days?
It's good. I mean, like most people, when they ask that question, it's like a COVID related thing because it was like we were like the first city to be hit crazy, and then like we had all the regs and stuff. But it's good. Like right now, it's like, we just got out crazy snowstorm. Like this is probably my least favorite time in New York is like January to February, just because it's like it gets dark so early. It's really cold, like
very cold.
It doesn't have that energy. So like I usually try to go somewhere else for a few weeks. Which I did go this year. I went to Costa Rica in January, but no, it's good. It'll get better in New York. So
yeah. Did you ride that horse all the way back to the States? I saw your Facebook post. Do you still have your horse?
I don't. That was the first time I've ever really been horseback riding, and I was like, this is amazing. Like I need to do this more, because the thing is that normally when you go horseback riding, like in the States or something, like you don't get to gallop on the horse. You kind of just get to like trot around and like see things. It's like very chill. But here it was like started off just like walking slowly, and then she's like, okay, all right, now we're gonna go like a little fast. I forgot what it's called, like trotting maybe.
Yeah,
like, and it like hurts. Like you gotta like
oh yeah,
the horse, or else it's like your ass is like sore.
oh for sure. Yeah, you don't want to wear like gym shorts. That's a bad idea.
I had to wear like long pants, and I was like, fuck it, and like my legs were chafing so bad the whole time because it's like,
oh man,
rubbing against the saddle. But and then we started galloping and stuff, and I was like, this is crazy. Like I'm actually like galloping on the beach with this horse. It was like the sickest thing ever.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, first time I went horseback riding was a while ago, and I just remember I felt like I was in that horse sitting position for like 2 days afterwards because I sat on it for so long.
Luckily, I wasn't too sore, but my friends asked me, they could not walk afterwards. He was like, that was horrible.
But it's like waddling real hard. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, dude, thanks for joining the podcast. I'll give you a proper intro. But yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and then just kind of hear about your musical background, how that led you into Ableton Live. And maybe we can just start nerding out about like some of your production process and your membership and what you're teaching these days.
Yeah, for sure. I think that sounds like a great plan. Yeah. So I like really young, never really like learned an instrument or anything, but I did like to listen to music a lot as a young person. A lot of times I hear people say like their parents were super influential in their music, but for me, like there was no speakers in the house. Like parents aren't like strict or anything. They were just like never really listened or showed me that much music. So, you know, I grew up on like hip hop, Jay-Z, Eminem, huge Eminem fan.
Nice.
And then like in high school, got a little into like rock. Didn't really discover electronic music until like the middle of high school, and like the first kind of electronic group where I was like got like an obsession for was Justice. Their album Cross, like that was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
For sure. That was a classic, man. I listened to that on repeat for a while.
It's such good electronic music, and it was kind of like my Daft Punk. So that's when I got into it, and then I kind of like went down like the YouTube hole at the time, and this was like when like Bloghouse was really big. So it was kind of like this post late 2000s electro, like early like 2011 2012, and like EDM was starting to get big. Like progressive house was huge. You had people like Alesso, Tommy Trash, all the Swedish guys. So that's like kind of when I really got like obsessed with electronic music, and I was like, that's like the only thing I listened to. At my school where I went to school, I went to this high school called Bronx Science. It's like a public school in New York, really big, like 3,500 kids for the whole school, just a high school. And they had an electronic music lab. So it was like a classroom with maybe 30 computers, like iMacs with a little like MIDI keyboard, 25 key MIDI keyboard, and Reason installed on it. And it was like a class you could take, and the teacher would kind of go over like synthesis, like how an envelope works, what a filter is, then would go over like, you know, a timeline and what an EQ is, and like basically kind of like how you could like make music. It wasn't electronic music focused, but obviously with like the synthesizer, it was you know, I was making like little electronic beats in that class, and like that was my favorite class. It's funny because Robert Moog, who invented the Moog synthesizer, he went to my high school. So that
no way.
That whole digital music lab, was donated by his daughter. So it's my high school has a lot of like really cool alumni. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson went there.
Wow.
We have like 10 Nobel Prize winners. Like it's pretty crazy. It's like a prestigious technical kind of high school.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where I was like, I first dabbled with like making electronic music, and I had never like played an instrument before that. I played guitar like a little bit, but never really like got super into it. And at the same time that I was taking this class, I got into DJing. So I had a friend in high school that was he had like a little DJ controller, like the one you plug in your laptop. And in New York City, it's hard to have like parties because everyone lives in like I lived in like Manhattan, like in an apartment building.
Yeah. We're at in Manhattan because I used to live in Chelsea on like 17th and 7.
So I grew up on 73rd and West End. So that's
cool.
But so like we would have these little like apartment parties, and then like we would rent out like different spaces around New York. Like one was like a community center. Like we use a fake ID and like rent out these places. Like one time it was like a synagogue or something, like the bottom of a synagogue, but we would throw these like little like ragers there. It would be like tickets kind of, and like we'd make like jungle juice, and it would be like 150 kids bring in some PAs, and me and this kid would DJ just like EDM, pretty much progressive house, like
Yeah.
to all these kids. And so that's where I kind of fell in love with like DJing and like producing. It was like it's kind of at the same time. So like some producers, it's like they produce first and then they get into like the performing aspect. For me, it was like pretty much at the same time. But yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. And then from there, you know, I took production with me. I went to college, not for music production, but it was like my kind of thing there. You know, when I was done with class, I would go open up the computer, make beats. Same thing, I would DJ in college as well, like a lot of fraternity and sorority parties and like little things. And I went to school in Durham, North Carolina. So there was not like electronic music wasn't big there. What the college kids wanted to hear was like hip hop and like pop music and throwbacks. And so I mostly didn't play electronic music at the time. I would try to sneak it in a little bit, and you know, I could get away with some stuff, but like it was a lot of just kind of open format DJing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, from there, I graduated college and started working. I moved back to New York City. I started working at like a tech company, like a 9 to 5, not doing like computer engineering, but like a lot of Excel, a little bit of coding and stuff. And would just like work on music when I got home from work. Started to get a couple gigs like in the city, little like bars and stuff. And just kind of like always kept it up. And then one day I was like, this is, you know, I really want to do this full time. If there's no better time for me to like quit and give this my all. So I quit my day job and kind of haven't looked back since, and just kind of built myself from there.
Yeah, man. Well, it seems like
Long
it's been
story.
work. No, I mean, that's good. That was actually pretty short compared to a lot of people on the podcast.
I can make it longer, but like
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that a lot from people who are like, you know, you only have so much time in a day. And at some point, I feel like a lot of artists just have to make a commitment. I'm going to do this full time for X amount of years or whatever, and just try to make it work and hit that threshold to where they either like make it a career where they have the ability just to sustain themselves off their own art, or a lot of people try to do the 9 to 5 thing full time and then also do their art, which can work in some scenarios, but that's like really hard. But
Yeah.
but yeah, man, that's cool. It seems like it's worked out though. You've had some really interesting things, like your track Jumpin' was like number 2 on Beatport for like 4 weeks and hitting the charts. And you played like EDC not too long ago, and I saw some photos on your socials. That looked pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been like to go back to what you were mentioning before about the kind of all or nothing aspect. Like I've noticed that with a lot of my friends, because I've been like kind of like in the circuit or the scene for like I would say like 5 6 years, like knowing other DJs and stuff and like playing. And like you get to see artists like start from wherever they are and kind of, you know, get to wherever they are now. Sometimes that's up, sometimes that's down. But like what I do notice is that the ones that like quit their job and like kind of gave themselves no plan B, they almost all succeeded. Like there's so many cases of people that I know that were like that. Like a good example is John Summit. Like we've been buddies for like 4 or 5 years now.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Yeah. So he like I remember he was like working accounting and he was like asking me, he's like, oh, I don't know if I should quit, blah, blah, blah. And this was like maybe a few months after I quit. And it was like, I was like, dude, you gotta quit. Like it's just your whole like attention and like your whole everything you think about every single day is like, how do I survive? How do I get to the next point? How do I do
Yeah.
X, Y, Z? So it's like almost by forcing yourself to do those things. Like I don't believe in like that manifest shit for the most part, but it was like you kind of like manifest yourself into existence by putting yourself in that scenario. And a lot of people that I think are really talented producers and like are not, you know, just as talented as the guys and girls that are DJing now. It's not that they necessarily aren't as good as them or not as good as like branding or whatever it is. It's mostly that they just like life hits them and they can't do it full time. So like maybe they have a kid, maybe they, you know, blah, 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 whatever it is. It's like, it's more of just like you have to put all your eggs in kind of one basket if you want to do it.
No, I totally agree, man.
What I will say is the exception is like, there are some people like Jaywara, who's an amazing like tech house DJ and tech house, but house DJ producer. I've known her for a really long time. She's been working as like a big touring DJ working her full-time job for the last like 3 or 4 years. I had no clue. Like she's literally like playing all these festivals, playing all these shows all the time, releasing a huge amount of music. Like it's a full-time job. And like she like posted like only a few weeks ago, she was like, oh, I just quit my day job after 5 years of doing it back and forth. I was like, I don't know how the fuck you did that, because
Yeah, right.
it's like, honestly, and I was like so impressed. So it's like, if you have the will, like you can do both, like for
Yeah,
sure. But
it's possible, but definitely hard unless you have like a time machine or something nobody knows about,
yeah,
which
or
would be cool.
you're just super really good like time management and
Yeah,
blah,
and
blah.
probably even have a team to help you like offload some of that work as well, for sure.
It took me a long time. Like when I first quit my job, those first like year and a half, 2 years was like really hard for me, because I'm like a person that does super well with like structure. So I would go into
Me
the
too.
work and like, there'd be emails with like what I have to do. And I was like, oh my God, I have all this time and I don't have that much to do, because like I wasn't, as big as a DJ back then. So it wasn't like there was just things to do all the time. And like it was really bad for my mental health. I was like playing video games all the time and just like didn't know what to do. And it's only like kind of since the pandemic where I was like, okay, I kind of figured out like a routine, and like
Mhm.
I love it now. I love working for myself. I love like the entrepreneurship of being like an independent artist. But
Yeah.
it took me a while to get there. It's definitely not an easy road.
Oh, it's definitely not, man. I know that for myself as well. Like as an entrepreneur, some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm not wearing pants today. I don't want to do any work. I just kind of want to sit there and like play Command and Conquer on my phone. And then other days, like you just wake up and you're grinding until like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, having that flexibility, I think for people, it's a personality thing. I think some people are really good at being like self-motivated and organized. Other people are just like chasing circles and they need structure from somebody else to tell them what to do.
You could definitely learn it though. Like I
Yeah.
definitely wasn't that kind of person, but you kind of end up with your own like I'm not really in a routine. Like I don't wake up at the same time every day. Like just like you, some days I like,
Yeah.
play Call of Duty for a few hours during the day, whatever. But it's a learning process. Like
Yeah.
get better over time.
Yeah. Well, somebody needs to save the world from the zombies with Call of Duty, though. It's
Exactly.
important. It's an important task.
Exactly.
Sure. I've been there. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about like what you're doing now, because you started this membership, Kickbase or kick-base.com for anybody listening.
Taking base.
Yeah. Kick-a-base. So, yeah, basically, how did that start? I mean, obviously, the pandemic hit and that was a big part of it from what I know.
Yeah. So basically, I'll give you kind of like the background before Kick and Bass, and then kind of explain what it is and how we're running that. So yeah, when the pandemic started, I was like, fuck, I can't DJ. I really have no income, because like the kind of music I do, like I don't really get like syncs or anything. I'm making like maybe a few $100 on like at the time on
Yeah.
Spotify royalties and stuff. So I was like, all right, fuck, this sucks. So
Yeah.
someone like reached out to me, this guy Moose, who's another DJ from Cincinnati, and he was like, "Hey, like, are you doing any like lessons, like Zoom lessons? I know a couple other DJs that are doing that. Like, I would love to pay you to kind of open Ableton with me and work on some music." And I was like so hesitant. I was like, I don't know, like, well, I'm not really a teacher. Like, I don't really know what I would talk about, but whatever, let's like try it out. And we did a session. I forgot like if I showed him a project file or if he had one of his projects for me, but I ended up like really enjoying the teaching aspect of music production. I'd never really done it before, but I've always like loved to explain things to people. I was like a debater in high school. I like to talk a lot. You'll probably see by the end of this interview. So
It's good.
so basically, I did this session and I was like, oh, this was like pretty enjoyable. I have all this time and I have no money, so I got to do something. Um, so I basically like did a little Instagram post and like put on a suit and like nerdy glasses, and I was like, Tech House 101 is open. I am taking like lessons for Zoom. It's going to be like $50 an hour. And like since I did that post, like the first 3 weeks, I had like so many people like reach out to me. Like
It's awesome.
I was doing like maybe close to like 30 hours in Zoom in a week, which is like a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of lessons.
Maybe not 30. Maybe it was like between 20 and 25, but it was like 4 or 5 hours in Zoom like a day. So some 2 hour lessons, some 1 hour. And it was like a grind. And I was like really giving it my all. Like people would give me their project files. I would like go in, open their project files, like go in, change things, really kind of like help them and their music. And I did this for like pretty much all of 2020. It was like every day during the week, just schedule lessons, get on Zoom, work with people. So I had a lot of like repeat clients that were people I maybe did like 20 sessions with. I had, some that did one session and then none. Mostly not like complete beginners, like mostly producers that kind of knew their way around Ableton a little bit, but like needed like to work on like their mixing skills or composition or like how to sound more professional. I did do a couple like people from scratch, but it wasn't my specialty. Like I was more it's a totally different skill to kind of teach from scratch. But yeah, I did that all of 2020, and then early 2021, I was kind of getting like burnt out a little bit. Shows were starting to come back. There was kind of like light at the end of the tunnel with this like vaccine coming out, and I was just like too hard to schedule everything, and like I didn't like that I had to like be at home at a certain time and be in front of Ableton. So I was kind of stopped doing the lessons for a bit, and then took a break for a few weeks. And then I was like, okay, like I've done this education for a while, and like I know I'm good at explaining concepts to people and like showing them, all these different aspects of music production. So I was like, why don't I make like a YouTube video where I just try to make a track from scratch in like an hour? And I did that, and I think it was like February of 2021, and uploaded it, and had like no subscribers on my channel, like maybe 30 people or something. The video got like a lot of kind of natural algorithmic views and likes, and people were like really responded well to the video. And I was like, okay, so there's definitely something here. And that was like my first time taking my Zoom sessions and like trying to do it for like a lot of people at once by putting like a video. And I was like, okay, so I definitely can do something with like these videos. Like people are definitely enjoying them. And I basically was approached by another producer that was in a production Discord. I never heard of what like a production Discord was at the time, but it was basically through another artist for kind of different house genre, this like minimal house. And he's like, yo, I'm in this Discord. This is kind of how it works. I think, we could work together and make our own Discord that's specifically focused on the genre that you work on, which is tech house. And this was like maybe May of 2021 last year. And so I was like so skeptical because like I was really playing a lot of shows at this time. I had some success with like my music, like Jumpin had hit #2 on Beatport. I was like, okay, there's definitely like my career is going well at this moment. Like, do I really want to like invest my energy into like this new business venture and try to create this community? And I was like, fuck it, let's just try it. Like, worst comes to worst, it fails and whatever. So we were like, okay, I'm gonna have to record a shit ton of videos. So basically, what I did was I recorded like 10 to 15 hours of tutorial content, kind of similar to like what I did on YouTube. So I did some track breakdowns of my own tracks. I did some more like high level stuff, like on mixing tech house, and some stuff on like arrangement and some little tips and tricks. Like I basically tried to cover like a bunch of different areas. We pre-recorded all these videos. We built a website, and then we launched then like July 1st. And I think like the first day we had like 30 people like in the Discord. And this is like a paid Discord. It wasn't like you could be there for free.
It's like a private server. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a private server. It's like linked to like a credit card to your account. And so like the first day we had like 30 to 40 people, and I was like, holy shit. Like
That's awesome.
I was like, I thought we were gonna have like 40 people like by the end of like 3 months. And I severely underestimated like how much people wanted to kind of like learn and get better as a producer. And from July 1st, now we have around like 360 members.
That's great, man. That's awesome.
It's kind of been like my full-time job other than being like a producer and DJ. And it honestly, sometimes it takes more work than that. But to give an overview of like what exactly it is, it's called Kick and Bass. It's a production community in Discord. And the best part, in my opinion, is the community. It's like 350 producers from all over the world that are all like super active in the Discord. And we have a community feedback channel. People give each other feedback on their music. People start collaborations there. It's like all these producers that are really trying to just be the best they can be on this one specific genre, like all in this, like talking every day, all day. And I have two other coaches. Well, we're gonna have three now, but Moose, that's why it's funny because he was the first guy to book a lesson, and now I hired him as a assistant coach. And this guy Hader, he's an Italian tech house producer. So you can send us one of your tracks, and we give you like in-depth, like written kind of bullet point feedbacks on big things for the track. Like, you know, you're missing a lot of mids in the drops, like they sound very empty. And then you have like specific things like, you know, this sound right here is piercing and it has some resonance or whatever it is. But you get like a really good comprehensive list of feedback. And you get that twice a month. So you get 2 tracks with that feedbacks. And you also get this thing we call like our label program. So it's an idea I came up with, but basically throughout my career, I've connected with all these different A&Rs from labels, and I know how hard it is as a producer to get your music out there and heard. So I basically built this kind of program where we work with the A&Rs. People can submit their tracks, and if I'm like, okay, I think this is actually like a really good fit for this label, I kind of personally send and vouch for it to the A&R. And we've had some like really sick success stories there.
That's cool, man. I love that. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of online schools or academies that are like necessarily pitching songs to A&R, like on behalf of, you know, the students or whatever. So I think that's a dope concept. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun part, is that like there obviously are a lot of like online schools, and like, you know, there are other like Discord communities like it, but as like an entrepreneur, kind of, we get to like decide how all the features that we want to put in the Discord. And, you know, like we did like a remix contest for like one of my songs, my latest single, Perfect, you know, and now I get to like send the best remixes to the A&R if defected. Like there's just like lots of opportunity to kind of be creative in like a business perspective. And like I found that as a DJ and producer, I didn't really have that before, because it was kind of like, well, you get to go play shows and you can make merch and you can sell your music on, you can put your music on Spotify and Beatport. But other than that, it's like there's not as much room to like have these kind of collaborations with companies and
Totally.
run stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
man.
really cool.
I think that's really smart for you to do that. And I saw a lot of artists pivot during the whole COVID thing and start teaching more.
Yeah.
But like teaching is definitely a unique skill. Like I don't think it's something everybody can do, but it sounds like it's been working out really well for you. I've watched a couple of your tutorials and it was great. I saw the one where you talking about doing reference tracks.
On YouTube or no?
That was on your site. It was embedded. I think it
Oh,
was on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
we take some of the tutorial videos that I do and that the other guest coaches do, and we try to like clip it up and put it on YouTube so people can get some kind of content. And if they want the full thing, they can kind of sign up and do it. But yeah, like teaching, the thing is like I think you can like prepare a lot as a teacher and have everything kind of laid out and go through it. I'm more of like on the fly. Like when I do like a video, I don't like plan out exactly what I'm gonna do. I kind of like have a general idea and then I just kind of wing it on the fly. So I feel like sometimes when you do that, you get like a lot of gold nuggets of information, but sometimes it's a little bit jumbled. So it's something I'm definitely working on. But
yeah,
I don't see myself being an artist and not being involved with education and somehow. Like I think it's something that no matter where my music career goes, like up, down, I'm gonna try to kind of have a role in it and somehow, because I think
yeah,
it's, you know, I'm sure the way you learned electronic music was like YouTube tutorials. Like that's kind of how a lot of people learn, is just getting free information online. So it's like it's kind of like my way of giving back as well, as to have this available for people.
yeah. And having that like immediate feedback, I think is really helpful for a lot of people too, because you could just kind of get lost in the sea of YouTube and just like then you don't always know the right questions to ask, right? Unless somebody's like, yo, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
But
There's some really talented people on YouTube, like where I'm like, it's just crazy how much knowledge they have and like how good sound designers they are or producers or whatever it is. I think like one of the unique things that we have is that like a lot of our guest coaches and myself and the ones that we have internally, like they're all kind of touring DJs and producers. So a lot of times like YouTube guys, like they just do YouTube. They don't really like release that much music on their own. Like
it's true.
they
It's
don't
true.
really tour. So it's like it's a
Yeah.
little bit more of like a holistic feature. Because it's like we're getting people that like know the touring side of things, they know the business side of things, they kind of know the label side of things. And like we want to be this kind of like complete package. If you're a tech house producer, like that's the place you need to be. Like if you're not in kick and bass, it's like you're severely missing out on your opportunity as like an artist.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you do teach, like inside your Discord. Like what are some things that either you've been learning or some things you're really passionate about, or some like Ableton hacks that you've been doing lately. Love to like talk some more specific stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So like we do a video each week, and we kind of alternate between like longer videos that are like something you would sit down for like maybe an hour to 2 hours and consume. So those will be like track breakdowns, or create a beat from scratch. The create a beat from scratch is definitely like our most popular video, because people like to see kind of creation and creativity on the fly. That's often where a lot of people struggle, is like getting ideas for sounds or melodies or arrangement ideas. So those, it's kind of, we cover everything. Like we'll start with like a drum loop, and we'll add, a bunch of sounds, and then we'll arrange it out, and we'll add automation. So you really get like, in one of those videos, you kind of get so many tips and tricks. I couldn't even really, a lot of automation ideas. You get a lot of arrangement decisions. So for example, in house music, it's a song is usually very repetitive. So finding ways to switch things up in different sections without making it too drastic, like little tricks on drums to kind of change the way they sound in one section without really changing their overall tone, like little things like that. Like, so those are like the longer videos, the creative beat from scratch. And a track breakdown, obviously people want to see, what you use to make sounds, like what were your presets, what did the melodies look like, what did the MIDI look like for that, how did you process your vocal. And then we have shorter videos, and they kind of like encompass anything. Like one series that we've been, not really series, but a theme we've been focusing on has been how to like steal stuff from other people's tracks. And so it's like, how would you steal a kick drum? And like Moose, for example, did a video on that, where you kind of go to the intro, you cut out your kick drum from the reference song you're working on, then you put in Ableton the EQ3, so you have your low, mids, and highs, and you duplicate the track 3 times. So you have one section with just the lows, one with the mids, and ones with the highs. Consolidate each, or you freeze and fly in each track, and then you get basically that kick drum that you stole in 3 different, sounds: the lows, the mids, the highs. Because oftentimes when you take a track from the intro, there's maybe like some shakers there or some other sounds you don't want. And so by like splitting it, the shaker probably only lives in the high frequency section. So you can kind of like move the sample back and cut that out. And like, I actually didn't know that before. And like, I've been using that a ton. So we kind of have like little tips like that. We had a video recently on stereo versus mono kind of compatibility. And, a lot of times we highlight plugins that the coaches use. So this is one from Voxengo called MSED. I don't know if you know that
I've
one.
never heard of that. I'm going to check that out.
Span? Probably, right?
Yeah, I've heard of Span. I haven't played with it, but yeah.
Yeah, so Span is just like a frequent spectrum analyzer. MSCD, it's like a free plugin. It's their kind of like all things stereo. It's very similar to like the utility in Ableton, but it's a lot, it has a lot more power. Yeah, it's more detailed. It's more powerful in my opinion. So there's something called like a corralometer on there. So you can kind of see if sounds are going to be out of phase. When you sum them to mono, it'll lose a lot of volume. It's a nice little bar there. So Moose kind of went over that. And, I like to do some like tips and tricks in there where I'll basically put this plugin on my master. And, with the utility in Ableton, you can listen just in mono. There's like a mono button. But with this plugin, you mute everything in the middle. So like a lot of times I'll do that to try to like catch sounds that shouldn't really be in the stereo field. Like maybe it's like a bass that's like really wide, or like the kick drums there, or just like something's like super loud in stereo. I'll kind of use that. So it's pretty much, we're just taking everything that we've learned, like no holding back any tips and tricks, and kind of giving it to our members. We're making house music, so there isn't as much emphasis on like music theory, for example. We don't really teach much music theory. I feel like there's people that make better music theory videos on YouTube. So like if someone has a question about like scales or music theory, I'm like, all right, I got the video for you. Like watch this, like you're going to learn a ton. But it's like, we don't really focus on that as much. Yeah, those are some examples.
And like when it comes to like playing with like mid side and like playing and splitting different frequencies, I've been playing a lot more with audio effects racks in Ableton to be able to do that and just kind of custom hack it for students who don't have plugins. It can get expensive sometimes too. But But yeah, man, there's so many plugins out there. It's crazy these days.
We try to offer, like, for a lot of the videos that are pre-recorded, I did like create a beat from scratch. I did it with just like Ableton stock stuff and samples, so that like if you didn't, have all these plugins. But after I did that video, a lot of people are like, "Oh, we want to see like the full one where you like go all in and like use your stuff," because a lot of our producers are like really, really fucking good. Like these are people that are, getting music signed and have charted and blah blah blah, and they're just kind of like, trying to get from that 90% to that like 100% level. And it's like, that is so hard as a producer, because you can watch all the tutorials and then you get to this level where like your music's good, but it's like, how do you get it to like that fully professional level?
Yeah.
And, we try to offer that for a lot of producers as well.
Any other plugins that like you're really into for like your own music?
One I just actually yesterday recorded a video on is there's this guy, Glacias. He's a British DJ, and he has his own studio called Woodland Studios, and he started making plugins. The first plugin he made was like a saturator specifically for bass. I think it's called like WS Low End or something like that. I can send you the link to his website, but he just made a plugin that's an emulation plugin of this synth called the WOS Bass. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't played
Like
with
a
it.
pink box basically, and it's like it's a bass kind of synthesizer, and so he made this plugin called the WOS Bass, WOLSA, and it's a digital emulation of this old school synth, but you can like save the presets, you can tweak a lot of things that you weren't able to. It's like a really simple synthesizer. Like they don't have like oscillators, they just have like 6 different color modes.
This looks fun. I'm looking at it right now. It's like 80 euros.
Yeah, it's around $100, but it has like a really nice like kind of analog warmth to it, and I like how simple it is. Like there's a cutoff, it's a cutoff knob, there's a resonance knob, there's an attack and a release, and then there's like these different oscillators kind of that you can pick. So there's really not many parameters that you can tweak. There's like also an effects section. So I kind of like that, because it's like I feel like for a lot of people, if you're making bass lines for house music, you're going to use a synth serum or silent, and it's just like it can be overwhelming with the amount of parameters and like effects that you can mess with. But a lot of times for this kind of music, you just want like a simple bass line that sounds really fat and full and maybe has some warmth to it and some movement to it. And so like this, I just did a video on this, and we're going to be offering a discount for all our members. So 20% discount for 2 weeks. It hasn't been announced yet, but
sick. Yeah, this looks cool. I'll have to try this out. Maybe I'll hit him up and be like, hey, how about that NFR?
Yep. Hit him up. I connected with him on Instagram, Iglesias. Or whatever. But yeah, like that was like a plugin.
Have you ever played with Ableton's bass synth plugin? It's just called Bass. That's all it is.
Is it a new one that came out in Ableton 11 or no?
I think it came out in 10. It's part of the Max for Live Essentials pack. But yeah, it's just called Bass, and it sounds crazy good. It's got like it's an analog emulation kind of bass feel, but it's really simple. It's like the most simple thing you could really throw down. I mean, you can go deeper into it, but you just basically can layer like 4 oscillators. It's got like a sine, triangle, square.
But I will admit that one of my weaker points is Ableton, and is their native instruments. Not native instruments like the company, but the ones that they include.
Oh, their stock sounds.
I don't use a lot of their stock synthesizers. Like my buddy John Summit, he uses Operator a ton, like for all his bass lines. He pretty much uses Operator, and people were like, "Whoa, we thought you used like some crazy stuff," and it's like, nope, all you need is like a simple Operator.
That's the thing though, is like my feeling is use whatever gives you the results that you want, whether it's a plugin or whether it's a stock sound. But I mean, that said, Ableton, if you know how to dial in like Operator or analog, like analog, one of the first things I learned when I was studying at Dubspot in New York City down the street from you, it used to be anyway.
Do you know Devin James?
Devin James.
Or Cody Murray?
Cody Murray. I feel like I should.
They worked at Dubspot. I heard a lot of bad things about Dubspot afterwards.
Dude, it changed. Like I was there back in like the prime OG days of Dubspot, like back in 2013.
Yeah.
And then at like I think 2015, it started to take a dive because there was all kinds of stuff. Yes,
the
some
owner
shady,
like left with a lot of like equipment or money or something.
yeah,
Like that was like, it was kind of like Icon Collective and Dubspot like back, you know, that's when I was in college, and like those guys were instructors there. I don't know if they did the production or DJing, but they definitely.
yeah, like I think 2015, 2016 is when a lot of the main guys that made it what it was left.
What about the guy who's a dubstep infused? Is he one of them or no?
I don't know. I'm not infused. Anywho, yeah, I mean, rest in peace. It was a great place. But one of the first things that I learned was like how to dial in the analog instrument for sub bass, and like you can get a fat bass sound just playing with Ableton's analog. It's wild. Just go in there, and then there's like a little sub section. You just turn up that sub, and out of the box, just like boom, like your speakers will be like, it would be like a fan, just like blowing all over you. Just like a lot of bass.
What I mean, once you get it dialed in, like those synths are great. I mean, I do think that Ableton didn't have good like instrument sounds in my opinion. Like the piano, like
the presets.
Yeah, like
yeah,
the presets,
some
like
of the
strings were not great, and so I kind of like when I figured that out. And another thing for me was that I actually started on Reason, so I was like a Reason 4 user, and like I basically only switched to Ableton in 2015. And like when I was using Reason, you actually couldn't like add audio tracks to the timeline. You had to put the audio in a sampler and then draw out a MIDI note. So it was like horrible because you couldn't see the waveform. Like if you wanted like an effects, you had to like put in a sampler, like a riser. It was like a huge pain in the ass. And I haven't really gone back to Reason since, but there was a lot of cool stuff. But when I got Ableton, like I had never had plugins before. I never had like presets. Like that was like one of the big reasons I switched was like, it's like, dude, there's all these like Massive at the time. I was like, I need Massive. Like everyone's using Massive for all these sounds. And so I became like a kind of like a plugin and preset whore. And I just was using those as much as possible. I didn't really like try out enough of the instruments. And now it's just kind of like a bad habit.
Hey man, honestly, as long as it's a habit that gets you what you want out of it, who cares? That's how I feel. Yeah. The sub sine bass preset in Ableton is my favorite, and I know that's like a signature for a lot of people.
Operator preset or no?
Yeah, it is. You just type in sub sine.
I know there's hip hop sub or something that's like a big one people use.
Yeah, they actually changed the name of the hip hop sub bass. Yeah, and now it's called sub sine, and then they also have a basic sub sine. So they kind of made another version of the same preset.
I've definitely used to be hip hop sub bass before. Like that is
this is like Alive 11 changed the name of it. Now it's subsine bass, but yeah, that's probably my favorite sub bass go-to. You put like a saturator behind that, and then like even run it like parallel through a drum bus and turn the dry wet down to like 40%. You can get some thickness out of it. It's nice.
The drum bus is awesome. I think that came in 10 point something, right? Drum bus.
Yeah, drum bus was live 10, and yeah, man, maybe it was like 10.1 or 2. I don't remember. But yeah, like I was talking to somebody on the podcast the other day who it was, I forget who it was. They ran like 4 drum buses in parallel through like some of their synths, which was crazy. Like they put it on the insert of the track, they pulled it down to like 30%, then they grouped it and they threw like another 2 more drum buses on the group. And then they ran that parallel as well to like another like 50% each and added some crunch and stuff. And like some of the biggest, fattest synth sounds I've ever heard in my life. I think that was Ambrose Deek. He worked with like Glitch Mob and a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, badass.
To go back to what you were saying about sub bass, so like obviously every producer is different, but in like tech house, a lot of the guys like they don't use separate sub basses for their bass. They kind of like have the sub aspect of their bass line and like the more 100 to 300 hertz like mid part like all in one sound. So like when I produce, I actually don't really ever have like a separate sub. Even if I have like a Reese bass, for example, I kind of just use whatever like low end comes in the synth.
Yeah, in the patch. Yeah.
And I know for different genres, like for something like future bass or dubstep, like where there's a lot of layering going on with like chords and leads, like having a separate sub bass is just like more than norm. But it's just like interesting because like there are some house guys that will separate their sub. There's a lot of guys that won't. And yeah, it's just like a interesting point about production because like everyone kind of does it their own way.
Yeah. And for sure. And a lot of plugin presets are built already with that in mind. Like they're already saturating like above like 250 hertz or whatever, just to like, and then like they're stereoizing it and then making mono below like, 200 hertz just to get that fat top sound that actually can be heard on like shitty iPhone speakers.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing.
That's like a huge thing in tech house too, because it's like a lot of times the bass line, you're not going to have a super like top end to the bass line. Like you want it to have that darkness to it. But at the same time, like you want to be able to kind of hear at least some of the melody and the rhythm of the bass line on like a phone if you're playing a track on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of like careful precision is done with like saturation to kind of get those harmonics like boosted on like a filtered saw wave. Like that's probably the most classic like tech house bass line is like a filtered saw wave. And like the, it really like the cutoff frequency, like the difference between 210 hertz on a cutoff versus like 225, like those little minute differences can make a big difference. So like when I'm producing, I'm always like kind of like, where's the sweet spot here, and how do I saturate this just to get like a tad more buzz, because it's like you want to keep it dark and like gritty, but you want to have a little bit of that. So that's a thing that we kind of teach in kick and bass as well, is like bass processing and layering and all that.
Yeah, especially in dance music. I mean, you got to be doing those tweaks and stuff for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I also noticed that when you got up and left, you had a Subpack on your chair, and I love my Subpack.
Yep,
it's a game changer.
I could talk a little bit about my like listening setup. So I was like, you can't see it, but right next to me I have Rocket Fives that I bought in high school. So they've been with me almost 10 years. And like I was pretty much like using them to produce until like 2018. And I was talking with like I was talking with a producer buddy from Australia who we both use the same mastering engineer. It's this guy, Klaus Heavyweight Hill. He's a dude in Australia. He's sick. He's done like a lot of big records. Like, you know that TikTok song, like Astronaut in the Ocean or something? It's like,
I don't think so. I'll have to check that out.
It was like a really big like viral TikTok song. He's a sick engineer. He does a lot of house guys like Chris Lorenzo's album and stuff. But
cool.
He was basically like, look, man, like unless you have a studio with like a treated room with like really good acoustics, like mid-tier monitors are just not gonna sound great. Like even if you get like Adams or what Gen X or whatever it is, it's like you're way better bang for your buck getting a super nice pair of headphones and a Subpack, because so I basically made the switch in 2018 to headphones, and I got these the Audis LCDX. I actually bought them from John for like
those are great. Those are great headphones. Everybody I've met that has those love those.
They're amazing. It took me like a month to kind of get used to it because there really is no like low end on the open backs, but that's why you have the Subpack. So
do you have an amp for those? Those take an amp, don't they?
Yeah, you could use an amp, but when I've used them, I just went through my interface and there's like enough power to, I've never experienced them with the amp. Actually, my friend CID, he bought an amp for it, like a nice few $100 like amp, like something substantial. And it's like, it definitely sounds nicer and you get a little more like stereo kind of space, but it's like, it's kind of like 10% nicer in my opinion, 15%. Like you get most of it just from having it. But so I got those in the Subpack, and like I never realized, like I just didn't know what was going on with the sub because I never owned a sub. Rocket Fives, like the 5-inch woofer is just really not doing much for the sub. And then I was like, whoa, I can actually like understand the sub of a kick and the sub of a bass line. Like I'll watch YouTube videos with them on and like I'll fucking hear it like rattling, and I'm like, those guys should have cut that out. So it's totally changed the production game and mixing game for me. And like whenever people recommend like a setup, I'm always like, if especially in New York, like I can't have a subwoofer. I'm in my living room right now. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I can't make a studio room. So
that's the thing.
Go.
No, I totally agree, man. I did the exact same thing too, because anybody listening, like most people don't have the right acoustic setup where they put their desk and their computer to produce. That's just a thing, right? Because most of us are in the bedroom or whatever, unless you got a big ass setup and you can just treat the room with diffusers and foam and all this stuff and get the dimensions right. Like I agree. Having really solid headphones and a Subpack, I think is a good solution for a lot of people. I was trying to get Dennis Foley on the podcast. He has a website called acousticfields.com. And basically he works with artists in these situations who are like, hey, my room's too small, I can't get my speakers to sound great. They spend like, you know, $3,000 on awesome speakers that they'll never actually be able to really hear.
Yep.
And because of the room, like I would much rather pay money to have a nicer room with okay speakers than having the nicest speakers in a small room that doesn't work for them. So but anyway, he works with artists on a budget. So you just send him the dimensions, you measure out your room, you take pictures, you send it to him, and him and his like super smart team of acousticians will like create these algorithms for your room, and they'll like create cabinets and special diffusers on a budget, on your budget, and they'll send it to you in the mail. And I paid like $3,000 for my diffusers, which I sold them because they weigh 400 pounds each, and I'm moving to Colorado.
Yeah,
but
that's the problem with that.
but it was mind blowing what those did. Yeah.
Were they bass traps or were they just diffusers?
So they're called acoustic diaphragmatic absorbers, which is a crazy word, but they're like full of sand and carbon and like all this other stuff. And you have these giant, they're like huge cabinets. They're probably like, I don't know, 7 feet tall and like 5 feet wide. But yeah, they're crazy heavy. Like it made a world of difference in my studio. And now I'm just like doing the nice headphones and the Subpack thing on the go. But
yeah, I've realized that like, well, one, acoustics is like really fucking complicated. Like unless you understand physics really well and like math, it can get, there's just so many exceptions. Like I took an acoustics class in college and it was actually one of the hardest classes I took. It was just like the levels that you can get into with like the way that sound works in rooms is like pretty crazy. And like I remember I did order some bass traps from what's like the big website that like the big company, GLC, GLC maybe, or
I'm not sure.
I think it's called. They're like bass traps, and like even then, like you just like need to like install them perfectly. I maybe paid like $500 for 2 of them, and like no, they're not GOK.
GIK?
GIK, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Monster bass traps.
That's exactly what I got. And I was like,
nice.
I don't really notice much of a difference here. And they like looked really ugly in my room. And like that was kind of the turning point. I was like, you know, if I like this is not gonna be, I was living at home at the time. I was like, I know if I do anything with this room, like I'm not gonna live here that long. Like unless like you have a space, you're like, this is kind of like my permanent space. I'm gonna really invest in making this my studio. I also don't use any like hardware. Like I actually don't even use a MIDI keyboard. So
really,
yeah, I literally am like completely in the box.
Okay.
So like for me, it's like I don't really need like a studio space. Like I like kind of being mobile, and
yeah,
you know, I used to think that you have to do like your mix downs and every mastering like all yourself, and it's like that's really, I realized like as you get bigger as an artist is like not the case. Like all your favorite artists are all using people to help them with mix downs and mastering, and I used to be like insecure about it, and I'm like, there's absolutely like no reason to be. Like there's people that professionals, maybe they own like analog equipment that you're just never going to get your hands on. It has like nice warmth to it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I can always get a separate pair of ear on things. It's not like, you know, I'm making all the decisions in this room. Like I could really produce with anything. I could produce on my laptop speakers probably and make a banging track and like just listen to it, you know, send it to someone if something needs to be tweaked. You know, it's not there.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't, like I think people, there's this like internet consensus that like you have to have like this like your mixing is going to get way better once you get these new headphones or these new speakers or whatever, and like that's just not the case. Like you'll be really disappointed when you buy and all this shit, and it's like still, you know.
And honestly, some of the people I know who have like the most badass studios with all this crazy outboard gear release the least amount of tracks.
That's a whole separate other conversation, because like it's kind of like the joke about like modular synthesis as well, is like the more, you know, the guys with like the crazy, you know, modular rigs, it's like where's the music? Like it just never gets released. And but there's nothing wrong with that as well. Like I think it's sick, and like that's something like in the future I definitely want to develop more with my music, is like a hands-on approach, because I think it's super fun. I know it's super fun because I've done stints in studios, and I just like don't, it's not the best time for me to like start building all this. I need to kind of just like keep doing what I'm doing. But like I do want to have that studio one day where I have like a bunch of synths and old school synths and maybe some modular stuff, and you know, that's like the kind of dream to get to that point. But
No, I've definitely been tempted to go down the modular route, and I've had to fight it so many times because it's just like, first of all, it's pretty damn expensive. But I know that once I get one, I'm just gonna like not see the sun for like 5 days, and I would literally just play with it constantly. And like,
Addiction.
I love my I love my Sub 37, my Moog. That thing is really great. It's a happy balance, I think, with like actual keys tied into it, and it just sounds thick and juicy. But all I really need, like, if you had to take everything away from me, as long as I have my push too, I feel like I'm happy.
I never got into like what would you call the push to and like machine like not sequencers but like
It's just like a control surface,
control
kind of
surface.
basically. Yeah.
I've heard people like swear by them and be like they're the best thing ever. And for me, I've like always wondered how I would use it as a with the music that I make. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
know. Do you know Sarah Sims?
Say that again. Sarah
Sarah
Sims.
Sims. She's a tech house producer from Toronto.
Sounds
Um,
familiar. The name's super familiar.
yeah, she used to be the product rec for Mix and Key. But she, yeah,
I use it all
she
the time.
loves the push. She's a big advocate of it when she had it, and she makes a lot of tech house music. Um,
Like, how do you use the push when you in?
Well, like, first of all, for anybody, yeah, it's a loaded question. There's a lot of ways you could use it, but I typically mostly use it as like a beat pad. Like, I really love the pads on this thing. It's like really sensitive. It's also a great step sequencer too for like building a beat really fast on the
Yeah.
pads. But I mean, it basically is just controlling Ableton, so I don't have to touch my computer. It's less mouse clicks, which I enjoy,
Yeah.
and it's a really great way to make beats really fast. It's great for people who don't have a lot of music theory because you can just lock everything into scale really fast
Yeah.
and play all the notes, and you always know it's in key. That's always nice too. Because
Feel like
honestly,
set up, it's like sick because it's like you kind of can just like switch between instruments and use it
mhm,
as a keyboard or sequencer and stuff. I'm always just like daunted by the task of like getting it plugged in and like getting all the mappings correct and blah blah blah. Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've started making a lot more templates when Live 11 came out because they added that template in the browser. It's like in your face now. So like I have a template set up, and the push is really plug and play. Like it automatically recognizes once you plug in. So there's
yeah,
really no setup, which is kind of nice.
that makes
It
sense.
was the push 2 is the first controller that was made in-house by Ableton. Before that, they had Akai help. Like Akai worked with Ableton to do some stuff, but the push was the first real in-house controller made by Ableton.
Yeah, the way I produce is also like very. I don't want to say like robotic is the right word, but it's like I'm just like very technical about things. So like for example, like, with all my drums and almost all my sounds, like I very rarely use like samplers or
Mm-hmm.
like at all. Like I'm very much like on the grid kind of adjust things. I like to
Mm-hmm.
like manually adjust stuff. I don't really like to use I do use Groove Pool as like a decent amount actually, but like a lot of times I'll just like manually move stuff. I never play anything in. I almost always draw all my melodies
Really?
and rhythms. Like I use the keyboard that I use to type to kind of like just like get notes and to like test out sounds, but I don't like record and like quantize. So it's just like the way I produce and like kind of music I make. Like um it doesn't have that much of like the hands-on type approach, but yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I get insecure about it because I'm like, oh, maybe I should be like jamming out a little bit. But
Nah, it
if it
doesn't.
works for me, it works for me.
That's how I feel too, man. Like it doesn't really matter. I
Uh,
think one thing about the push though is anybody listening that has one, if you hold down the quantize button, you can adjust the swing knob.
uh,
So you can actually even have the notes programmed like you would do. You just like program it in there. And then you could also like swing it too if you wanted to swing those notes in the sequencer, which could be fun
does that
too.
work off of the groove pool, or does it work off a track delay, or is it just like a
It,
swing?
it's it's like a swing. So it like will record new notes in there. If you just like tap a note or whatever, it'll like record it and quantize it to the swing
That's one thing
of the beat.
I do love about Ableton is like it gives you a lot of different options to introduce groove to your
Mhm.
rhythmic elements. So like this is would be a good idea for a video actually for my Discord, but just like something all about groove because there's just so many ways that you can do it. Like I really like the track delay feature. So
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
have like one shot percussions or things that are just kind of coming like or like a clap layer, for example. And like, if you hit the D on the bottom right in Ableton, where you can turn on your inputs and outputs and your metering and all that stuff. That'll open up track delay. And like I usually like play with that, especially with like layering. Is a lot of times if you like nudge samples like early or late, you can get some nice. You can deal with any phasing issues as well, but sometimes you can get like a bigger sound, and it's really great for just put it on the grid, and then later you can like delay them to get that swing. But
totally, yeah, track delay is dope. I love track delay. Dude, it's so good hanging out with you. I would love. I know we're getting close on time right now. We're over the hour mark, which is great. That's a good
whenever
sign.
I do like a podcast or conversation with someone, I absolutely lose all sense of time. Like,
me too, man.
Like 20 minutes or so.
If I didn't have a clock in my face, we'd probably be at this another 3 hours, honestly. But yeah, I mean, before we head out, where's the best place for people to connect with you and follow you on the socials or your website or whatever?
So the best place is if you go to my Instagram, which is It's the Westend. There is a link in the bio. It's kind of, I don't know if you've heard of like Linktree before, but I switched to this new website called Solo. So I think mine, I just made the change. So I'm going to spit this URL.
I use Linktree. I'm curious, what made you change?
Dude, Linktree just looks like ass. Like this Solo just looks way better. It's the same price. And like yeah. So it's solo.to/Westend.
Okay, I've seen that. Yeah.
That is where pretty much all my social links are there. All my upcoming shows and festivals and new music, and a link to Kick and Bass is there as well. So that's the best place. Pretty much on all socials, my handles is It's the Westend, ITSTHE, Westend, WSTEND. Yeah, that's probably the best place you could find me. I have a promo email as well. So if you're a producer and you want to send me some music, it's the Westend promos@gmail.com. I don't really give promo feedback there because I do so much do so much feedback in my Discord. If you're just sending me music to play in my sets, you can send me stuff there. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, and I forgot to ask you this as well. Any upcoming projects that you're excited about that you're going to be doing, self-releases, whatever else?
Yeah, so I have a remix that's coming out at the end of the month for this DJ Vice is his name, WEISS. I'm remixing one of his songs on D for Dance, which is one of Defected sublabels. So super excited about that one. It's kind of like a more kind of like crossover tech house, commercial house type sound. Really just nice track to listen to, like the car vibing out. And then, yeah, I got a couple releases coming in the months after that. Some more club focused stuff, which I'm excited to put out as well. Some labels that I've already released on, some new labels. So you can be on the lookout for that. I do plan on having some more YouTube videos as well. So if you're a producer, especially like house or tech house, you could head to my YouTube channel. I believe it's just Westend. But if you go to that Solo link, there's a link there. So
yeah. I'll include the links, everybody, in the show notes too. So listening right now, make sure you go check that out.
Yeah, that's where everything will be. But yeah, I mean, this year it's like I have a really big festival schedule. So we've already announced like Bonnaroo, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, nice, dude. I'll probably be there.
Oh, then we gotta hang
to come see you. Yeah, dude, that'd be dope. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But yeah, just like I'm playing a bunch of dope festivals. Some are announced, some aren't. So chances are I'll probably be where you live. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll definitely come check a show out.
Yeah, let's hang. I've never been to Bonnaroo before, and
I haven't been either. I've had tickets to go like 2 years in a row, and then something came up. So this will be the year.
Hopefully, no rain or any mud or anything like that. That was like the big problem last year.
Oh, right. Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, but yeah.
Sometimes that makes it better though. Like I've been to like shows like Red Rocks and it was just pouring rain, and as long as it's not cold, everybody's like, "Fuck yeah, dude, it's good."
Oh no, I love like a good rain at a festival, but the festival didn't even happen this year because it like rained before.
Yeah, that's no good. Ain't nobody got time for that.
As long as it doesn't like mess with the logistics, like a good rain kind of cleanses out the crowd out. And
that's true. All the people who didn't wear deodorant, it just kind of gets that stench away, which is nice.
But then you wait like half an hour and then you got that like wet, moldy smell on.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want to stand in that. It's no good.
No.
Sick, Tyler. Dude,
thanks for having me on. This was really awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it. Your music's cool. I love it. Everybody go check out Westend. Check out the links in the show notes. As always, make sure you give them a like, a follow, maybe join the Discord. And yeah, man, let's definitely hang and talk soon.
Yeah, 100%. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure, man. Take it
All
easy.
Right. See ya.
All right, peace. Big thanks to Tyler for hanging out on the podcast. Make sure you check out Westend and see all the links in the show notes. Yeah, give him a follow. Also, if you don't own the latest version of Ableton Live, I'd be happy to hook you up with a special deal. You can learn more about that by going to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. Save some of that piggy bank and yeah, get a deal purchasing Ableton Live. Also, if you want to join my Discord and hang out with me and other producers, ask questions, learn some new Ableton hacks and tips and tricks, then join the Discord. Go to liveproducersonline.com/Discord. Much love, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful week. Go make some hot tracks, and I will see you in the next episode. Later.